ලංකාව බෙදීමකට ලක් වෙන්න බෑ. ඔක්කොම එදා ඉඳලම අපි දෙමළ සිංහල එකට හිටපු අය. ඒ නිසා බෙදීමක් කරගෙන ජීවත් වෙන්න කොහොමද කවුරක්වත් කැමති වෙන්නේ නැහැනේ. ලෝකේ බෙදීමකට කැමති වෙන්නේ නැහැ කිසිම කෙනෙක්. ඒ නිසා බෙදීමකට වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මම හිතනවා ලංකාවේ ඉතින් එහෙම බෙදීමකට කවුරක්වත් කැමති නැහැ. ඔව් ලෝකේ ඔක්කොම එකට ජීවත් වෙනවා නම් ඉතින් සාමයක් කියන්නේ. දැන් සාමයක් නැතිලා තියෙන ලෝකේ කවුරුවක් හුඟක් දෙනෙකුට වෙලා තියෙන එකනේ. රටවල ගහ ගැනීම. ලෝකෙ ඔක්කොම එක්ක වෙලා හිටියනම් එකට හිටියනම් ගහ ගැනීමක් නැහැනේ.
We had to live together. The world is so small, becoming so fast.
Welcome to Sri-Lanka, ladies and gentlemen. We have now arrived at Bandaranaike International Airport, Colombo.
Sri Lanka's documented history spans more than 3,000 years. Its deep harbors and geographical location gave it a unique place in the ancient Silk Route. This island was known to travelers from different parts of the world by different names. Like in India, it was known as Lanka or Sinhala. Ancient Greeks called it Taparabane and Arabs called it Serendip. In 1505, the Portuguese arrived to this island and named it as Ceilão. This is the name which was then transliterated into English as Ceylon. Ceylon was heaven. Probably this is why Adam was sent down from heaven to this place. But apart from that, lots of things about Sri Lanka are not the way we know it. For example, Colombo is not the capital of Sri Lanka. The capital city is Sri Javardhanapura Kotte. Colombo Airport is not in Colombo, it is somewhere near Negombo. Other things which make this place a heaven are still the same. Let's get together and see how Sri Lanka is today, and let's meet some Sri Lankan people. the first Sri Lankan kingdom, was created in 543 BC and it was moved to Anuradhapura in 380 BC. The city of Anuradhapura was the capital of the country for nearly 1,400 years. Lying some 205 kilometers north of Colombo, this city is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world.
According to the legends, a prince, an outcast, really because of his conduct, the father, the king, had to send him off, put them in a boat with his friends, and he was put into the sea. And actually he was expelled from the country, and they floated and they landed on the coast of Sri Lanka. And from there on, first he married a native princess, and then after a certain period of time, after having 2 children, she was chased away with her 2 children, and he brought a princess from according to the legend, from West Bengal, right? So so these according to the legends, that the Sinhalese nation starts from those 2 people, this prince and the princess who was brought later on.
And of course, the Sinhalese probably do not constitute a monolithic group. It is a composite group. I think it is the language that unites the Sinhalese, because in terms of religion, you also have a minority of Sinhalese being involved in other religions, particularly Christianity, but the Sinhalese are mostly Buddhist. Today we would consider Sinhalese as an ethnic group, though there are also internal differentiation within the Sinhalese community in terms of, for instance, caste.
When we look into Sri Lankan history, we see many occasions of internal conflicts, one of which became the reason for the construction and population of Sigiriya.
Good thing that we have from the first Sri Lankan kingdom started during the 3rd century BC, we have archaeological sites. The last one, of course, the one before the last, Kotte Kingdom, when Portuguese came, that's the one that we have nothing about really, because this is an urban area and the places have been destroyed. But other places, almost all the kingdoms, especially Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, 2 main kingdoms, have a lot of archaeological sites remaining, and that's also bring many people into the country.
Sigiriya was the capital of Sri Lanka from 477 to 495 AD. The fortress city of Sigiriya was built by King Kashyapa. Most of the elaborate constructions on the rock summit date back to Kashyapa's reign.
Well, Sri Lanka being an island, in the Indian Ocean, located very close to India, has received migrants from a number of areas in India itself. And then of course there have also been migrants coming from the east, for instance from Malaysia. There have been some migration from Malaysia, and then also from other parts of India, and also of course Arab traders. Migration over a long period of time has contributed to the diversity of the population in this country. As a result, you have different religions being practiced here.
One of the very well-known writers This is before 1500s, like 1300s. One very well-known writers say, if you don't know Tamil, Sanskrit, a language called Magadhi, and all these Indian languages, Sinhalese plus Tamil, you are not an educated person.
The best thing about the Adam's Peak is the sunrise and the view of the island bathing in the rays of the sun.
If you go back history, from Adam's time, Adam and Eve, according to records, when Adam made a mistake in heaven, he was thrown back. Today we have the footprint of Adam in Sri Lanka, that is called Adam's Peak. So that must be one of the reasons. From the heaven, he was thrown into another heaven.
At the Adam's Peak, you can witness followers of different religious belief worshipping around one and the same footprint, although all of them credit that footprint to different people. As per Buddhist belief, it is the Buddha's footprint. Hindus consider it to be Shiva's footprint, whereas Muslims credit this joint impression to Adam.
Sri Lankan population appears to have been mostly agricultural, and initial settlements were located in the dry zone in the north central part of Sri Lanka, and they were dependent on irrigation facilities. Like if you travel to the north central province, you will see many large irrigation tanks, and also in the southwestern dry zone, again you will see a lot of irrigation facilities. So the people were mostly concentrated in the interior of the country, and the coastal belt would have been much less populated, creating more space for the people who came from outside.
Sri Lanka is a small country. It's 270 miles by 140 miles. This is Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a small country. It's 270 miles by 140 miles. This is Sri Lanka. But thank God, God has given a very good blessing. Is our soil conditions are, compared to any part of the world, we have one of the best soil conditions. So whatever you produce, tea or whatever fruits or anything, the soil has to be the main thing. So fortunately, we have gone through about 100 years, Sri Lanka tea. The soil conditions are so superb, it can compete with any part of the world. So one of the main thing is, whatever you plant, the soil conditions are giving the top results for our tea. Although we have gone through 125 years, still the soil is the main. Producing about 300 million kilograms of tea in Sri Lanka. We have about 600 plantations in Sri Lanka. All these are, formerly it was owned by British, later it was taken over by the government, and government divided this into 22 companies, and now the private sector management has come in and taken over the plantation, the 22 companies. Other than that, like our plantation, we have private sector management, 100 acres, 50 acres. Today, each person can have in Sri Lanka 50 acres of tea. That's about 25 hectares. So this plantation is owned by a family. The family consists of about 4. Well, we have about 200 acres. That's about 100 hectares of tea. We have got about 16 grades of tea. That is BOP. Everything has to have a name now. When you buy a car, Toyota. You have a Mitsubishi. We have got all Rolls-Royce. Like that in tea, there should be something now. So broken orange Paco, BOP. BOPF is broken orange Paco fannings. Then we get the Paco. So if you take the two-leaf and a bud, if you take, for example, here, this is the two-leaf and a bud. This two-leaf and a bud produces the 16 grades of tea. So once you produce 100 kilos of green leaf, it will give 25 kilos of black tea. Now, for example, dust 1, that is the last grade, but it has only 1%. So there is a big demand for that tea. So 1% of 300 million kilograms, you work out. So if there is somebody interested in that tea, the production is not enough. So the 16 grades of tea, different country by different. So there is a Colombo, we have got the Chamber of Commerce. So what we produce, we send the samples to our broker. There are 8 brokers in Sri Lanka. Those brokers have contacts with the entire world. They send the samples and get them to come for the auction. That every Tuesday we have the auctions in Sri Lanka. So at that time, now the Pakistan, they are interested in our black tea. They like the thing what we go for tea bags. So there is a big demand by Pakistan for that amount of tea.
Leaving the hills of Kandy, we head out to the city life. Unlike the older times, today the coastal belt is more thickly populated as compared to the central and north central regions. Colombo, situated on the western coast of the island, is a bustling city with all the attributes of a modern town like the high-rise buildings and lots of vehicles, but it has nicely preserved its traditional lifestyle by not erecting new buildings in place of the older ones, but adding them into the cityscape.
Definitely a multi-ethnic society, right? So it is very difficult to say which group of people came to live in this country, because there are all sorts of stories, legends and history based on legends and so on. One thing we know for sure is for thousands of years different ethnic groups have been living in this country.
And the languages, of course, have also been a major aspect of the diversity. And in Sri Lanka, we have 3 main languages being used. The Sinhalese, Tamil, and of course the Muslims in this country speak largely Tamil, but of course some of them also speak Sinhalese, depending on where they are. And of course English is also fairly widely spoken, particularly in urban areas. And then of course, Western colonialism has also been a major factor contributing to the diversity in the country. For instance, we have had Western colonization in the country commencing from the early 16th century. And all these colonial influences have also contributed to the diversity, not just ethnic and religious, but also various other forms of diversity that you can look at in terms of the way the people live, the way the people behave, and so on and so forth.
In the streets of any Sri Lankan city, you see a lot of people who belong to different ethnic groups, but sometimes it is hard to differentiate among these people and point out their ethnic belonging.
the Tamils have a bit of a darker skin than Sinhalese, and Sinhalese have more like golden, Muslims are a bit more like Middle Eastern color, yellowish, brownish, that color. And so this is the main thing that people just day to day talk about. Okay, if you are darker in the skin, you are like a Tamil, you are dark. And Sinhalese are more like brown color, because people think that because we have come here from northern India, especially from Bengal, and this skin color difference is there. But how can you say when people have been mixed for thousands of years, so many intermarriages, so much of mixing, and I wonder whether you can find any genetic differences between these three communities now.
If the differences are limited to physical features, they are helpful in identification. But are these differences not appearing more and more in minds and social approach rather than in faces?
Ethnicity has been a very notable issue for many centuries in the country.
Cross marriage is getting married. Now Muslims are getting married to Sinhalese girls are getting married. Those are all personal level, because after 18 years anybody can decide. And there are a lot of in Colombo Sinhalese people are getting married to Muslims are getting married, Hindus are getting married. So those are families, there is no hard and fast rule. They are getting converted in different ways. Those are all free hand.
Like always, people have different opinions about the one and the same thing. But what is undisputed is the fact that Sri Lankan youth prefers fun over differences.
For us to talk about pure ethnicities.
ඒ විදිහට එක්කාසීමේ ශක්තිය තියෙන බුදුදහමේ ආభాසය ලැබුණ නිසා.
Most probably if we might miss this, the next generation.
We have not been able to establish a very clear national identity.
So it is very irrational at this stage, that this modern times, for us to talk about pure ethnicities, pure races. It is really, it's hilarious for me.
ඔව් ඒක තමයි. ලංකාව ඇවිල්ලා බුදුදහමෙන් පෝෂිත රටක්. ඒ නිසා මිනිස්සු අපේ ලංකාවේ අයට කරුණාව තියෙනවා, දයාව තියෙනවා, මෛත්‍රිය තියෙනවා, අනුන් ගැන උණු වෙන හිතක් තියෙනවා. උපේක්ෂා. ඒ නිසා අනුන් ගැන හින ඕන වෙලාවක අපි මේ එකමුතුකම කෙනෙකුට කරදරයක් වෙච්චාම ඒ විදිහට එක්කාසීමේ ශක්තිය තියෙන බුදුදහමේ ආభాසය ලැබුණ නිසා.
पूजको लभते पूजं वंदको पटिवंदनाय जतो वित्ति च bapoti yomittanam badpati akuddo satarangeti saaya padinanto nyatinam uttamo hoti yomittanam nadpati gavo tasmajayanti kette chuttam yuvati puttana palamasnati yomittanam nadpati virulla moola santanam nikkoda miyamato amittanam prasanti yomittanam nadpati.
Is something about the Buddha's sutra. So what in the myth, there is a sutra called Mittanisansa. The bad thing you do for your friend, Mittanisansa, Mitradrohi. So that sutra is chanting. It has a meaning.
Okay. So this sutra that he is reading, it is something like Mitradrohi, right?
Mitradrohi. That is Anisansa. Once you do the Mitradrohi, say supposing you kill the animal, it's a Mitradrohi. You make the sexual conducting, is a Mitradrohi. And you are not treating your parents and mother very well. That is Mitradrohi. No friendly. And you cheat people. And no Mitradrohi. It is that. But people, various chanting. The so person to person.
This is something like he is asking excuse.
No, actually he is also doing his wrong thing. He is chanting. I know that sutra very well. Some words are wrong, but he expecting chanting the merits of good life, and saying that. No, not that. You have to be actor according to that. This is Buddha's teaching. We are chanting. Your voice is different, my voice is different, and you put more tunes into that. People are not getting the meaning of this, but they are getting on the sound. Everywhere.
So the form only, not the content.
Yeah.
When it comes to forms, we can notice that a lot of religious rituals have the same form, like the Buddhists going around the banyan tree and throwing water from their small vessels strikingly reminds me of another ritual performed by followers of another religion. But the important thing is that people look for the divine benevolence and mercy by performing these rituals. This in fact tells us that despite all those physical differences, people still have a lot in common.
Certainly after the war, after 30 years we suffered and we were really set back, the 30 years drew back. Fortunately the new president and the government, they are doing a lot of things and they are doing a lot of work in the northern province. It will take time, certainly next generation, at least most probably, because for example, now if you take the last 30 years, the people born in that 30 years, they have never seen up country. For example, if you take our children, my son and my daughter, they have never gone to Jaffna. We are living in Sri Lanka. We are not going to Jaffna. Jaffna people have not come to northern place. Now you can see weekend, if you are here in Sri Lanka Saturday, Sunday, you can see buses load of people coming from north. They just see which they have been deprived for the last 30-40 years. For example, a child born 20 years back, you have never heard of Norelia, never heard of Candy. Now they are coming from the university bus by bus every weekend. They are coming and going out now seeing we have missed all this. Like that, our people are going to Jaffna, they are going to east. There are a lot of development taking place. So, most probably if we might miss this, the next generation.
It is in the hands of the next generation to stop the differences from becoming a parting force.
It is a developing society, definitely, because somehow we ended the war and war is over. Now it is the developing phase in the country. But about harmony, it is still a question. Because when you have a 30 years of war, because politically we win a war doesn't mean that we can bring harmony between the groups of people who have been against each other for 3 decades. Right? I don't say that Tamils and Sinhalese or Tamils and Muslims have been against each other, but it is, I call this war more of a political war than a war between people.
No, it's a politics, you know, it's a politics. We were living very freely. If you take 40, 50 years back, we had the army commander was a Tamil, Muthukumar. They were top Tamil. In between the political situation, the youngsters who got into this one, they thought this small country, we can't divide this. These are, as I told you, 270 miles by 140 miles. How can you divide? Impossible, we can't live. And you, the northern points is different climatic condition. Can they live? Now within hours, now for example, if you want to go to Colombo, within 1.5 hours you are in Colombo. From Colombo, people want to have cool climate, they are within 1.5 hours they are here. And now they are going to start the airport system. Within 40 minutes you will be in Norelia. If you want to go to Jaffna, we will be in 40 minutes. Now cement is produced in Norelia, in Jaffna. So though nobody can think of dividing this country, it's ridiculous.
The distrust, the unpleasantness, disagreement that were caused among the different groups of people continue to be there despite the end of the war. Unless you take a special attempt after the end of the war, unless you take a very serious attempt to talk to the hearts of the people. No, we have to win the hearts of the people from both sides who were affected by the war. We can't just say, okay, the war is over, now people should be engaged in developing the country, people should support the development efforts, and then forget about whatever people had to go through, all 3 parties. I don't see a very focused effort for consolation.
But overall, I would say that we have not been able to establish a very clear national identity in this country. In other words, the people are torn between, their sectarian identity on the one hand and a broader national identity on the other. So it is really difficult to say, what proportion of the people would define themselves as, Sri Lankans or, as, members of a particular ethnic community.
Once again, differences make the society rich, and the same differences can drive the society into a chaos. So it's all in our own hands to make the differences a menace or a blessing.
You can respect your own ethnic background, but you should not make it like hatred towards others. Everybody should feel, everyone living in this country should feel that this is my country. Individuals in a society than having one single ethnic group.
Nevertheless, people migrate.
It will be a big change in Sri Lanka.
Well, the point is that in the modern world, migration is not necessarily a choice. It is, for instance, just because you want to go to another country, it doesn't mean that you can. Because, modern nation states guard their borders so jealously. But nevertheless, people migrate. People could migrate only illegally, unless, so it's not easy to just migrate as was the case maybe sort of in the past, when there were no strict border guards and strict controls over movement of people. So I think today we control migration, whether it is in migration or out migration. Though there are people who migrate legally, illegally, but people basically do not really want to take that that much of a risk, and Sri Lanka is attractive to many people, and on the other hand, it is not easy for people to just come in and settle down, because I think the regulations are so strict that it is not easy for people to move freely.
Are we trying to make it hard for people to come close to each other? Is it okay to create single ethnic societies, or is multi-ethnicity a better choice?
When there are single ethnic societies, they could be very parochial, right? We see through a kind of a blue glass. Everything is blue. But when it's multi-ethnic, it gives us an opportunity to see through the eyes of the other groups of people. It's very rich. It should be very rich, because it's not that bringing everyone together and make it one group. I don't like it very much. To completely destroy these differences. Differences should be there, but these differences make it very rich. That's why I think multi-ethnicity is very a rich experience for individuals in a society than having one single ethnic group.
We all must live together. Then only, so now see, for example, even schools, Sinhala Muslim time, we study together from age 5 to 20. After 20 we get into a job. If we study in a separate section, after 20 years, 15 years you are lived in one ethnic group, how will you exist with the other group? How can you go into a job? How can you command? Now I am a general manager in charge of all these plantations. How can I command these people if I have that mentality in my brain? You must think as a human. We are Sri Lankans. There is nothing called Buddhist, Muslim, Tamils here. We would be Sri Lankans. Now see Pakistan. We are Pakistanis. Indian. We are Indian. Saudi is a Saudi. So now Sri Lankan. One flag. We are under one flag. That's what the president says. You have all your religious activities and all, everything, but live as Sri Lankans, honor the flag. So I think my way of thinking is this: we are very successful. Another 5-10 years, you will see. You can recall this after 10 years. What I say, this will be a big change in Sri Lanka.
It turns out that people hope for positive change, but at the same time, they understand that multi-ethnicity or coexistence is the best way of achieving this goal. Multi-ethnicity is rich and it is a great experience. Although the world is not free of separatist thought, but here in Sri Lanka, people understand that ethnic singularity is not a progressive thought. On the contrary, it is a clear route to social regress.
We are living at a time when people have multiple identities. So it depends on the context. When you are away from Sri Lanka, you would want to call yourself a Sri Lankan. But the moment you come back, you might not necessarily identify yourself as a Sri Lankan. You might identify yourself as a member of an ethnic group, or maybe even a member of a religious community.
That doesn't go as a common nationality, because this is our main problem. We don't identify because of our long histories and rivalries. that have been there, like in America or Canada or any other country where all the people were migrants who settled down at one point and they become one nation within which there are all sorts of ethnic groups. And Sri Lanka, in Sri Lanka, because of these long rival histories, I suppose, that doesn't happen. People don't call them, we are Sri Lankans. Instead of that, we are Sinhalese, we are Tamils, we are Muslims.
Now see, all our people are in Middle East, 80,000, 90,000 people. How are they existing? Even Sinhalese, not only Muslims in the Middle East. All Buddhists and Tamils, they are working. How are they working? They have got to that type of, after going there, they have got to that type of thing and they are living. And like Muslims, they are in Mecca, Medina, all over the place. So this is only Buddhist country, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, you know. They are but in Sri Lanka, we as Muslims, we are living, I'm from Gampola, we are living together, our team, friends are all ethnic, all the groups are with us.
To progress, people need to come together and spend their energies on human development instead of wasting the same energies on trying to prove racial or ethnic superiority or others' inferiority. Majority and minority are just numerical terms. Let's not waste our lives distancing ourselves from each other. Well, the few days that we had here, I believe, are not enough to see all of Sri Lanka. You need maybe a year or more to see all of this beauty. As Chekhov said, if the sun sets in heaven as beautifully as it sets in the Bay of Bengal, heaven must be a very beautiful place. Let us all see the sunset and wish good luck to everybody here in Sri Lanka.
උසස් මනසක් තියෙනවා නම් එහෙම එක්කහ වෙලා ජීවත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් සත්‍යයක් ඇති කර ගන්න ඕන. දැන් තිරිසන් සත්තු දැන් එක්කහ වෙලා ජීවත් වෙනවා නම් අපිට මේ උසස් මනසක් තියෙන මිනිස්සුන්ට ඇයි මේ මෙහෙම වෙලා තියෙන්නේ මොකද එක්කහ වෙලා ජීවත් වෙන්න බැරි?
It has been a pleasure having you with us and we hope to see you again soon.